I need you to stop what you're doing right now, because what happened to Recife, Brazil, in the last 72 hours is not a weather story. It is a catastrophe story. And the numbers coming out of northeastern Brazil right now are something that most international outlets are barely touching. So let me give you the full picture, because this is worse than what you are hearing. And it is not over. Let's start with what we know as of May 3rd, 2026. 6 people are confirmed dead in the states of Pernambuco and Paraíba. 9,400 people have been displaced. 7,700 of them have lost their homes entirely. 1,600 have no shelter at all. 27 municipalities have been hit across Pernambuco alone. The governor of Pernambuco, Raquel Leira, has declared a full state of emergency. Brazil's Ministry of Integration raised its national operational response to the highest possible alert status. 22 emergency alerts were issued by the National Center for Risk and Disaster Management during the peak of the storm. 22. That is not a weather event. That is a system in crisis. Now here's the part that should make you lean forward. Among the 6 dead, 3 of them were children. A 6-month-old baby, a 1-year-old child, a 7-year-old child. Let that sit with you for a moment. These were not people caught in open water. These were families inside their own neighborhoods when the hillsides came down on top of them. In the Dois Unidos neighborhood of Recife, a mother and her 6-year-old son were killed when a hillside collapsed directly onto their home. In the Alto da Bondade neighborhood of nearby Olinda, a 20-year-old woman and her 6-month-old baby were buried by a landslide. 5 people were pulled alive from that same site. 5 out of 7. The other 2 did not make it. Now I need to explain something to you that the headlines are not explaining. Because when you see the words floods in Brazil, you probably picture streets with water. You picture cars floating. You picture people waiting. That is not what this is. Recife is not a flat city. Recife is a coastal city built at 2.5 to 5 meters above sea level, surrounded by rivers, canals, hills, and slopes that are densely packed with low-income housing. More than 52% of Recife's population lives in areas that flood on ordinary rainy days. Not extreme rainy days, ordinary ones. The city has 159 critical flooding points mapped in its own drainage plan. More than 670 officially designated risk zones exist within city limits, and 42% of the city's drainage channels remain in their natural state, unimproved, with their banks occupied by informal construction. So when a storm drops this kind of rainfall in 48 hours, the water has nowhere to go, except into the neighborhoods built on the slopes. And when the water saturates those slopes, the ground does not just flood, it moves. Now let me give you the rainfall numbers, because this is where it gets serious. In the 48 hours of May 1st and 2nd, 2026, Pernambuco absorbed rainfall totals that pushed the already saturated soil beyond its limit. According to Brazil's National Disaster Monitoring Center, CIMADEN, cities in the Recife metropolitan area recorded totals well above 200 millimeters in under 24 hours. To understand what that means, the average rainfall for the entire month of May in Recife is 301 millimeters. These communities received more than half of their monthly average in a single day. And the ground had already been receiving rain for weeks before this event hit. The Capibaribe-Mirim River breached its overflow threshold and was still running above flood stage as of May 3rd. The Goiânia River was running high. The Tracanhayam River was running high. 3 major river systems simultaneously swollen, all draining into a metropolitan area of over 4 million people. That is the geography of this disaster. And that geography is not getting fixed by the time the next storm arrives. Here is the critical piece that nobody is talking about. As of May 3rd, Brazil's National Center for Monitoring and Early Warning of Natural Disasters said the Recife region remained under moderate hydrological risk. Not clear. Not recovering. Moderate risk. Still active. They warned specifically of new flash floods, urban canal overflows, and flooding in poorly drained areas because of accumulated soil moisture from the prior days. The ground is full. It cannot absorb more. And the forecast called for additional light rain. Light rain on a fully saturated landscape is not light rain anymore. Light rain on soil that is already at capacity is immediate runoff. Immediate runoff into channels that are already above overflow threshold. The situation is not in the past tense. The situation is ongoing. Now I want to take you back in time for 60 seconds. Because Recife has been here before. And what happened before is exactly why the current situation demands this level of attention. In May of 2022, 4 years ago, almost to the week, Recife was struck by a catastrophic flooding event. In less than 24 hours, the metropolitan region received more than 70% of its average rainfall for the entire month of May. The result was the worst natural disaster in Recife's history since 1966. 130 people died. 130. In the neighborhood of Jardim Monteverde alone, in the Ibura district of Greater Recife, 21 people died in a single location. 14 municipalities declared states of emergency simultaneously. The Civil Defense of Pernambuco reported 130,000 people impacted. And in 2022, Petrópolis in southeastern Brazil also flooded and killed 233 people in a separate event just 3 months before Recife. These are not isolated tragedies. These are recurring events in a region that the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has formally ranked as one of the most vulnerable cities in the world to climate-related disasters. The IPCC did not rank Recife 16th in global climate vulnerability by accident. They ranked it there because of the geography, the population density, the drainage infrastructure, the income inequality, and the pattern of hillside settlement that makes every major rainfall event a potential mass casualty event. And the world keeps being surprised. That is what concerns me most about what is happening right now. The infrastructure along BR 101, the main highway corridor through Pernambuco, was physically blocked at 3 separate kilometer markers during this event. Kilometer 60, kilometer 83, kilometer 86. The main road artery in and out of the disaster zone was cut off at multiple points simultaneously. Emergency response teams could not move freely. Supply chains were disrupted. Recife's international airport was shut down for more than 5 hours during the peak of the storm. Completely suspended, not delayed, suspended. And the airport serving a city of 1.6 million people was out of operation precisely during the window when air assets would have been most valuable for emergency response. This is not a small-scale event happening in a remote location. This is a state capital. This is a city with direct federal and international connectivity. And it came to a near standstill in 72 hours. On May 1st, the United States Consulate General in Recife issued an emergency alert to American citizens in the region. Brazil's National Institute of Meteorology had warned of heavy rainfall and strong winds across Alagoas, Pernambuco, Paraíba, and Rio Grande do Norte. The Pernambuco Water and Climate Agency issued a flooding alert for the entire state. Pernambuco Civil Defense issued a landslide alert specifically for Recife, advising residents in risk areas to leave immediately. And still, people died. Still, families were in their homes when the hillsides came down. That gap between alert and action is one of the most documented, most studied, and most persistent problems in disaster response in this region. Research on the 2022 event found that people who were officially evacuated by civil defense teams often returned to their homes to retrieve documents, pets, belongings. Some refused to leave because they were afraid of looting, and those choices, made in seconds, during an already terrifying situation, cost lives. This is not a story about bad decisions. This is a story about a system where the alert reaches people who have nowhere else to go, where the shelter alternatives are not clear, where the cost of leaving feels higher than the cost of staying. That is the human dimension of what is happening in Recife right now, and it is invisible in most of the coverage. Now let me tell you about the scale of what Brazil has been absorbing as a country over the last few years. Because this current event in Pernambuco and Paraíba does not exist in isolation. In May of 2024, the state of Rio Grande do Sul in southern Brazil experienced what scientists have called the worst flood disaster in the country in over 80 years. 181 people died. Over 3 million people were affected. It was the 4th major environmental disaster in Brazil within a single 12-month period. The Brazilian government deployed the helicopter carrier Atlântico, the largest warship in South America, to assist in rescue operations. The federal government committed over $10 billion in emergency aid to a single state. And now, less than 2 years later, northeastern Brazil is back in emergency mode. Different region, same pattern, same vulnerable communities, same saturated ground, same hillsides. The pattern is not slowing down, the pattern is accelerating. And Recife, sitting at the center of that pattern, is a city that the United Nations has formally identified as one of the most exposed urban centers in the world. More than half its population in flood-prone zones, more than 670 mapped risk areas within city limits, 159 critical flooding points in the official drainage plan, a river system that overflows its banks not in rare catastrophic events, but seasonally, reliably, predictably. This is a city where the disaster is not the exception. This is a city where the disaster is the condition, and what the next 72 hours look like matters enormously. As of May 3rd, the Recife region was still under active hydrological risk. River levels above overflow threshold along multiple waterways, soil moisture at saturation. Additional rainfall still in the forecast. Federal civil defense teams deployed but still on the ground in active operations. The emergency is not past tense. The emergency is present tense. Share this. Find the people in your network who have family in Recife, in Olinda, in Caruaru, in João Pessoa, in Campina Grande. Tell them what is actually happening. Tell them what the numbers actually say. Tell them the risk area is not clear. Tell them the rivers are not back down. Tell them to have a plan that does not rely on making a decision in the moment when the hillside is already moving, because the time to make that plan is right now, not when the rain starts, right now. This is what is happening in Brazil today. Stay safe out there.